Come on. Alrighty. Okay. All right. Cool. Hope everyone's having a good 2023 so far. I mean, in my neck of the woods, we're only into it about 9 hours. So, hopefully things are going okay so far. Let's see. Great day to start a new army. I bought the Gloomspite Gits Battle Force box. Looking forward to building up a lot of squig goodness. Nice. Great day to work on an old army box that was never unpacked. I mean, sure. I mean, any day is a good day to do that, I think. Clearwater, Florida. Let's see here. Edinburgh, Scotland. On my painting desk today are a grab bag of unfinished projects I've carried through from 2022. Hopefully I can finish them and start new projects soon. Nice. Well, I hope that works out for you, Zingbo. Absolutely. Good morning from Eastern Carolina. A balmy 45 degrees central Pennsylvania. Yeah, it's above freezing here, which is weird. We were a week ago at this time, it was -5. There was definitely a point a couple days previous to that where it was like -10, and that was not the wind chill. And then Thursday, I think it hit 50. It's just yeah, it's crackers. Almost all of the snow is melted, which I'm honestly fine with. Let's see here. North Carolina. Hope you aren't too hungover. A little, maybe a touch. I don't know. Could also just because I only got about 5 hours of sleep. Because I think I went to bed around 2:30 or so and got up at 7:30. Calgary. Let's see here. What else have we got? Sweden, London, Nicaragua. We've got a lot of just Happy New Year's. I'm glad to see that. Peterborough, Winnicott, resuming work on Tyranids and also hope to play more Warcry and Advanced Squad Leader. Nice, nice. Good morning from Lexington, Kentucky. Hope everyone had lots of good hobbying in 2023. Hope everyone has lots. Cleaned hobby area last night, bed early, and at the painting table past 2 hours. Nice. St. Croix Falls, Wisconsin. How you doing? Saskatchewan. Always fun to say Saskatchewan. Bachow from Seattle. How you doing? St. Albans, UK. Oh shoot. Yeah, sorry. I got top chat on, don't I? That's my fault. Now where was I here? St. Croix. Let's see here. Jonesboro, Illinois. Nice. Iowa, working on some Resident Evil 2 and 3 terrain. Nice. Ontario. VJ Morph, checking in from 5 hours deep at the club, 2 hours until home. My goodness. Well, it's good to see you, though. I hope that you get to go home and get some sleep soon. Looking forward to getting the Goblin Ambush box from Mantic, says Colin. Nice. Unseasonably wet and warm Ontario. Got the Infinity Nomads collection for Christmas. Working on that. Cardboard terrain for Infinity is awesome. Nice. I don't think I've messed with the cardboard terrain for Infinity. That's interesting. Zionsville, starting to on some Drop Fleet Commander ships and some Germans for Last War. That's pretty cool. Oh, War Games Atlantic Germans for Last War. Nice. Good morning from Central Oklahoma. May I actually get some rattle can priming done this afternoon? Nice. Happy New Year from Borneo. Last hour of the first day of 2023. Nice. Isle of Wight. Let's see here. No hobby for me today as I'm visiting the in-laws, but got some tanks to work on for Christmas. Cheers from Mexico. I'll be visiting the in-laws in about 3 hours. Let's see here. Rainy start to the year here in the Valley of the Sun, Phoenix. I mean, Mr. Mitzel's like, I'm assuming you want some rain. I don't know a ton about Phoenix or Arizona in general. Happy New Year's from Savannah, Georgia. How you doing? Just finished the Infinity Code 1 Nomad starter, painted it to a high standard, messed up the oil wash badly, saved it with OSL effects. Love it. Oh, Godspeed. Nice. Happy Lego building day. Nice. Happy New Year from rainy and warmish Halifax, Nova Scotia. Just admiring my new Christmas Iwata HPCS. That is a nice brush. That's the one that I use. Happy New Year's from Denmark. Hannah, Alberta. Greece. Good morning from soggy Columbus, Ohio. Oops, everything moved. There we go. Happy New Year from Dothan, Alabama, I think. How you doing, Jesse? Happy New Year from Winston-Salem, working on some Necromunda Ashwaste Nomads for the new year. Nice. Kent, England, working on some Blood Bowl. Snowy Salt Lake City, how you doing? Vera Almeria, Spain, currently building Daughters of Cain Battle Force in Merseyside, UK. We've got Zaragoza, Spain, if I'm pronouncing that right, maybe. Scotland. I got a Catan Shard of the Void Dragon, Abaddon the Destroyer, and a Defkilla Wartrike for Christmas. Wow. Can you choose which one I should build first? I think the Wartrike, honestly. That's the way I'd look at it. Morning from Townsville. Don't drink, but still got up almost lunchtime because I had to walk home from the midnight fireworks. We didn't have any official fireworks here in town, I don't think, but there was a lot of unofficial ones. Honestly, it's been worse. So I guess there's that, but there was still something we noticed last night. London. Thank you for all your great content in 2022. Well, thank you very much, Tommy. I appreciate that. Checking in from South Ontario. Weirdly warm here. Yeah, no, it is here too. Happy New Year from Baton Rouge, which apparently turned into Silent Hill overnight due to the fog. Nice. There was some really great fog a couple nights ago. What are you doing? I knew I heard cat shenanigans, and she was doing something behind me. Yeah, there was some really great fog, and I was like, I should run home and get my camera quick, and then maybe go out and take some pictures. But it was also starting to rain, and I didn't want to do that. So, Wisconsin Dells, hope to get some Malifaux and Crisis Protocol built. Nice. Plan for today is after this, do some batch recording for both channels, set up new tools, and rescue a failed piece of terrain. Yeah, I've got some terrain projects I want to work on this year, I think. One of the first ones I think is I was just talking about this, I think, on the Twitch stream on Friday. Yes, I think I mentioned it on Friday. If you don't know, click. I stream on Twitch at twitch.tv/tabletopminions. Monday nights, 7 p.m. Central Time, and Friday, 10 a.m. Central Time. So I'll be doing it again. Let's see, today's Sunday. So tomorrow at 7 p.m. Central Time, I'll be streaming for 3 hours and painting and doing stuff like that. And anyway, I have this piece of terrain that was a 3D printed thing that I bought off of Etsy, and I painted it, and I was really unhappy with the way I painted it. I did that thing with the hairspray. You spray the hairspray on there and you sprinkle a bunch of salt on it. Did not work out the way I wanted. So I'm strongly considering just priming over it and starting over, but we'll see. I mean, we may get priming weather actually early this upcoming week. So I guess there's that, but I mean, when I say priming weather, I mean with a rattle can. Technically, this thing's small enough. I mean, now it's been primed at least once. I could prime it with my airbrush and it would be just fine. And honestly, like I said, it's not that big, so I wouldn't take forever. So, let's see here. About to start an industrial kill team board build. Nice. Painting a Tech Priest Dominus today and some random Necrons. Tech Priest Dominus is a lot of fun. I like that model a lot. I have a second one to work on, actually. He's got cool wings that I added on. So, any New Year's resolutions? I want to get down to 300 pounds. Well, good luck. I mean, I hope that you can do it, you know? I think you can. I think that I think most people can get things done that they put their mind to. As far as resolutions this year, I've been thinking about some. I haven't really come up with anything concrete. And I'm probably, if I do come up with some stuff concrete, I mean, I want to sit down and figure out some goals for the channel and stuff like that. I think that's important. But I also kind of want to keep them to myself. Um, I think my main issue is that when I talk about, oh, I'm going to do this thing, like I just mentioned that piece of terrain, when I say, oh, I'm going to do this thing, and then if people ask me about it and I haven't done it yet, then I kind of feel bad or something, and they don't mean to do that, but it's just it's a thing in my brain. So I think that maybe not like sharing, like when I get things done and go, hey, look at this thing that I did, definitely awesome, great. But as far as like saying, oh, I'm going to do this and this and this and this, I think that in general, if we keep, some people are like, well, I need the accountability, and that's fine. But if sometimes the accountability seems like it's too much, then I would suggest maybe coming up with a plan, but not sharing it with anybody. There's a school of thought, I think, in psychology that if you say you're going to do a thing and you tell people that you're going to do that thing, then it's almost, you get the same sort of like, I don't know if it's serotonin or if it's whatever, but you get the same kind of like benefit to as if you had already done it. If you're like, I'm going to write the next great novel or whatever, and your friends are like, yeah, that's awesome, you could totally do it, that's great, and then you're like, you get that stuff in your brain, it's like, hey, it's like I did it, and you didn't actually do anything. You know what I mean? So I don't know, there's different schools of thought on that, but I think that I feel like sometimes putting stuff out there into the world and saying, this is what I'm going to do, I would rather keep it maybe a little bit internal and then do it and then feel good about that. I don't know. It's everyone's got their own kind of way to keep themselves motivated or something like that, and that's something I want to try a little bit more in this year. But I just mentioned it, so it's tough. It's very tough. All right, let's see here. Enough shenanigans. I mean, it's all shenanigans, but Happy New Year from Battle Creek, Michigan. Looking forward to another year of great videos. Yep, I'm going to keep doing them. Happy New Year from my daughter Agnes. How you doing, Agnes? Hairspray and salting are two different methods. I wouldn't really recommend them together. I don't know how you do the salt thing without the hairspray then. Like, how do you get the salt to stick to the models if you don't use hairspray? That's the way I've always seen it, is you spray hairspray and then sprinkle salt on it and then wait for that doll to dry and then brush away the salt and also the hairspray, but not all the hairspray. Little bits and pieces of the hairspray. Good morning. Happy New Year from Montreal. Thank you for your well thought out videos. Won't stay long as family gathering later. Absolutely. Well, thank you very much, Jeff. I appreciate that. Happy New Year from the Philippines. Working on some Scarif themed Revel troops for Star Wars Legion. Nice. Been rewatching the movie for references. Yeah, I haven't watched those movies in a while. I should probably go through them again. My resolution is always the same. Get back to driving lessons and get some track laid and wired and a train running. Oh, that's cool. Didn't realize it was an other Sunday. Yeah, I had to switch things because otherwise I would have had to have had a one of these on Christmas, because last week Sunday was Christmas. So we were like, well, let's change the schedule a little bit and then we'll be good for a while. So finally bought some Warhammer minis, so I'm painting those up today. Some Admex Qatari Vanguard and an Inran Strider, or is it an Iron Strider? Is it Iron Strider? I can't remember what it's called. The Skitarii I'm familiar with. Those I've worked on those. My New Year's resolution is 300 by 240 VGA. Whoa, nice. Sticking to the New Year's resolution from 6 years ago. No more resolutions, just do it. And I think that's not a bad idea. Working on my hobby space today. Got Middle Earth Battle for Christmas. Nice. Hobby resolution: play more with my favorite projects. Restrict new starts. Go full Marie Kondo on things that are neglected. It's not a bad idea. I've got a hard time with it myself. It's not a bad idea. Several years ago, I made a resolution to never make resolutions ever again, and I've kept that resolution very well. There you go. Happy New Year, Uncle Adam. How you doing, Brian? More shenanigans. I just declare 2023 the year of shenanigans. I mean, there'll be shenanigans. Oh, there will be. But I just, I was just saying I should probably read forward a little bit more. Salt goes on with water, wait till it dries, and then paint. It wasn't the problem that the issue was, I think the salt that I used was too big. I didn't use like regular table salt. I used like, it wasn't like road salt or anything like that, but it was like it was pretty big chunks of like sea salt. I think it was the type of salt you're supposed to put in one of those grinder things that then sprinkles it onto your food or whatever. And it was too big. And when I knocked it off and stuff like that, started painting, it was, instead of being little kind of spots of rust, it was big, chunky. Yeah, it was not great. So I think that I'm going to try to probably redo it because it needs some redoing, I think. Let's see here. The big day of not New Year's Day is as big a day, if not bigger, in Scotland. Well, that's pretty cool. Wasn't sure where my super glue was on my new hobby setup, so I had to patch my finger the old-fashioned way back to getting these plastic heavy gear minis assembled. I cut myself when we were at Vince's. I had the Monument Hobbies retractable kind of knife, which is a really great knife. I like it a lot, and it's also good for travel too. But I was somehow holding it upside down. Like I thought I had it so it was pointing like this way, and then you do the thing with the thumb, and then it's like an X-Acto blade. It's like a normal number 11 X-Acto style blade. But I had it turned around, and my finger, when I grabbed the thing, instead of like trying to push up, it was just like, oh, it's not going that way. So I pulled down, and it went and it poked me right in the hand, like pretty hard. But Vince was like, boom, like there with a Neosporin and a Band-Aid and all that kind of stuff. And I can't even see really a mark now. It healed up real nice. Somebody in the chat on Friday on Twitch said that I think that maybe in the most recent Trapped Under Plastic that Scott and John were like, that I'd cut my thumb like real bad, but it wasn't my thumb. It was like here on my hand because I was holding the blade like this, and it went, and those are the special effects sounds that happened as well. But yeah, no, Vince was on the spot with the medicines, so no problems. My New Year's resolution is to put together a plucky gang and then run a heist for the Golden Demon. Imagine Ocean's 11, but with a much lower budget. Let's see. Resolution would be to try and be a bit less precious painting some Warcry warbands to actually get them on the table, following your advice and the hobby cheating tip of Vince EV. I agree. You know what I mean? Like, I think there is a benefit to, again, unless you're trying to, win a Golden Demon or some other sort of, painting competition or something like that. I think there's a big benefit to just being like, I want to just get stuff on the table that doesn't look too bad, So, I think it makes sense. I've heard you talk about Malifaux in a video. Do you play? If so, what factions masters do you like? I haven't played in forever. I played in 2nd edition some. I had a Von Schill crew. Victoria's I was starting to work on. But the few people I was playing with all kind of, they did not evaporate, but their interest in Malifaux evaporated. So then I didn't have anybody else really to play with. And so I kind of worked on other stuff as well. But yeah, that's, I haven't played it in forever though. Yeah. Need to use table salt and plain old water. The grinder salt would work in larger scales. Sure, I could see that. Good afternoon from Manchester. How you doing, Slev? Fun idea for everyone. My wife and daughter just had fun picking out random minis for me, Reaper, WizKids, etc., for stocking stuffers. They don't play, but had fun picking out models. Well, that's fun. I cut off a big chunk of the end of my thumb on Christmas Eve for my hobby knife. Ooh, that's no fun. Working on some Horus Heresy era Skitarii, Secuturi, Forge World resin bits on Adeptus Mechanicus Skitarii models before I move on to some of the Horus Heresy Mechanicum Forge World Titan models. Wow, fancy. Molly says I'm going to try oil washes this year. Nice. I'm going to try oil washes this year, I think. I have the stuff, so I should definitely do it. I've been enjoying enamel washes, and I'm not quite sure why. Someone asked recently what the difference is. One of the differences is that usually enamel washes you can just buy them pre-made, so that's a benefit if you're lazy like me. And the other thing is that I think it's mainly that they don't take nearly as long to dry, so that's also kind of helpful, I think. But I do want to try oil washes just to see, because a lot of people talk about how awesome it is, and I would like to really see like what is the difference there. You know, is there a huge benefit to the two, or to oils over enamels? I mean, definitely if you're trying to mix your own colors, it's much easier to do with oils. With enamels, you buy them and they're usually, the color that they are. And if you're going to be doing any kind of mixing, you'd be mixing two of them together, like streaking grime and streaking green grime or whatever to make something that's a little bit in between. I want to find 30 minutes to 1 hour of painting time a day and get more games at a shop I found nearby. Well, that sounds like a good one. Point of note for people who want to get more painted: paint a lot of minis to tabletop standard, and through sheer practice, you'll get better and faster. Yeah, no, that's true. It's very true. Specifically, like, I've found that I got to a point where I sort of like leveled out, like, with my skill level, but then I got faster. So I made a video about it years ago about like hitting a plateau where like I don't seem to be getting much better in skill, but I'm also not pushing myself, but I'm noticing that I am going through models more quickly. Something that used to be like, oh, I got to paint these 5 models, it's going to take me a week, was like, oh, I'm going to get these done in a day and a half or something like that once you really start kind of, clicking. So that's pretty good. Hi from Warm Mogilno, Poland. I don't think I'm pronouncing that anywhere near right, but that's okay, I hope. First time managed to catch you live. Happy New Year. Well, absolutely, Lucas. Let's see here. Good afternoon. Happy New Year from Sweden. How you doing? Molly says, I painted 235 plus models in 2022, and I'm setting myself a 2023 challenge of 5 models. So you went from 235 plus to you're going to be doing 5 models. Well, you should hopefully be able to hit that, unless you're like trying to make like 5 like super high end, like display type models. Then yeah, that can take a good long time. I once dropped a hobby knife, tried to catch it, and ended up stabbing myself in the leg. Proud of that. I've heard people do that before. That is a thing for sure. My daughter stole my oil paints, and they have disappeared into the black hole of pestilence that is the teenage girl's bedroom. Teenage boys' bedrooms are like that too. I remember from when I was a teenage boy. Any cut is bad. The last time I cut myself deep with a knife, I was at least 6 miles in the woods practicing bushcraft. I did have the items to fix it myself. Best part, no scar. There you go. Nice. I have a horseshoe-shaped scar on my left index finger since I was a teenager. Flaps aren't something you want on your finger. No, I've heard about that, yeah. Starting off the year right by watching the stream. Happy New Year all. The award show was great again this year. Well, good. I'm glad that people enjoyed it. I mean, again, it was funny because I had a bunch of people in the comments who were like, I can't believe that you didn't give an award to One Page Rules. And I'm like, when I went back, well, I had already done the research before because I didn't want to give anybody an award this year that I've already done in the past. So I went through the past TMAs to figure, and just kind of had a little notepad document and just put down who, won stuff. And so, yeah, I went back and looked at that, and One Page Rules, I gave them an award back in 2020. So, I'm way ahead of the game. Let's say that. So, yeah, but a lot of people, good comments, which was good. I was really glad. Happy New Year, 50 here in sunny Massachusetts. Nice. Considering ordering the Armor Through the Ages made-to-order set. As much as I dislike painting Marines, a nicely painted and mounted set of armor variants would be nice. I haven't seen that yet, but that sounds kind of cool. I've speared my instep more times than I can recount with my hobby knives until I had a brainwave and taped a chunk of sprue to the handle. Interesting. I mean, because it was slippy? Is that what the problem was? And the sprue helps with that? I could see that. Goal for 2023, fully finish at least 3 projects before starting a new one. I do have a tendency to have a bunch of different projects going at once, sort of. I'll have like right now I've got probably 3 or 4 different terrain projects that are in different kind of states of here nor there. And then miniatures, I've got 2 or 3 projects that are all sort of in different states of, like, I don't like when I've got like some miniatures and they're in a box, I don't consider that a project yet. It's once things get built that I'm like, now this is a thing I'm working on. But if I've just got like, oh, I bought these because I'm going to make a such and such army, that is literally not even something I think about too much until I actually start doing it. Because if I did that, then I would have hundreds and hundreds of projects going at once just because I have a lot of boxes in the basement or whatever, probably. So yeah, for me, it's more of a situation of I don't consider it to be a project until I've at least built the miniatures, and then I'm like, okay, well, I'm in the process of doing this or whatever. But that's just the way I do it. But yeah, let's see here. Lesson from cooking: a dropped knife has no handle. Ooh, I just feel like setting an easy early goal sets the year off right. Well, that makes sense. Sure, yeah. Okay, that's fine. Is that the knife that you threw at one of the lads? I don't know that I threw a knife. There may have been a point where someone asked to borrow my knife, probably Scott, because he was closest to me, and I might have fumbled it while trying to hand it to him, but I did not throw it at him. If I meant to throw the knife at Scott, I would have hit him. Not necessarily with the pointy part. Probably not the pointy part. Probably the handle, but, because it's actually really hard to actually stick a blade into something from like a distance. You know what I mean? We went to, years ago, pre-pandemic, for a friend's birthday, we went to one of those axe throwing places. And it's really hard to get those things to, like, you have to really practice at a certain distance and know when to like let it go and to make it so that it flips enough times and that it sticks with that. That's actually a decent amount of work. And then if you were like, well, I was actually like a half step farther away, then you have to be able to compensate properly. It's a lot of work. So yeah, I do not think at all that if I wanted to say throw a hobby knife at Scott or Vince or Sam or any of those folks, it would be clear luck if I actually got to stick in them. Well, it would be probably bad luck, honestly, but you see what I'm saying. But I believe, yeah, at some point I was trying to hand him a knife and I maybe fumbled it. Happy New Year from Sweden again. I hope you're having a nice day today. Painting up a really large printed Orc Stormboy for a display model. Nice. That's pretty cool. I've seen models at my local store that look great, but the owners say, oh, they need more work. I can't see the need for more work. Does anyone find themselves in that scenario? I mean, everybody's idea of like what's finished is different. And if a person wants to put more work into a model to get it to the next level, that's just what they're going to hopefully eventually do. Like I said, I have a tendency in most situations to paint to tabletop standards. So I'm just, like, well, here it's pretty close, pretty good. And they turn out okay. They're fine, but they're not, award winners. But then again, I'm also not trying to win awards. I'm trying to get more models on the table. So Happy New Year from Alexandria, Virginia. Spent last night painting my first Reaper Bones black figure. Nice. I was shockingly underdressed when you dropped the awards video. Couldn't find my boutonniere. I mean, that happens. The TMAs were great this year. Love your picks. Well, I'm glad you liked it. Grip tape on my hobby knives. That's not a bad idea, honestly. Happy New Year from chilly New Mexico. See, because it's warmer here than we would expect. So the fact that it's chilly in New Mexico is interesting. Who else here has made the grievous mistake of washing their brush in their tea? So that happens a lot in painters. I haven't done it, but that's because I have a tendency to, the stuff, I don't usually drink like out of a mug like this. Well, I mean, I do. I drink out of a mug on my, excuse me, on my hobby desk, but it's in a very specific spot, like way over here on my left on the corner of the desk, whereas my paint pot is over ahead of me, so that they're never anywhere near each other. Now, that being said, last week on Sunday, no, was it Sunday? Last week Sunday was Christmas, wasn't it? No, I take that back. It was New Year's. It wasn't Christmas Eve, was it? No, because we spent Christmas Eve with my mom. Today's the 1st. Hmm. It was real near. Oh, I know what it was. We got together with the in-laws. We were there on Friday night, so the Christmas Eve. That's what it was, because my sister-in-law was in town. She was staying with us, and so we went over there on Friday night for dinner, which we normally don't do, but we did that night. That's what it was. Anyway, because I knew it wasn't Sunday, because Sunday was Christmas, and there was a whole bunch of extra people there, and we didn't have like a sit-down meal. But we were having a sit-down meal, and normally, like, usually my wife and my mother-in-law and my father-in-law usually like have some sort of beer with the meal, and I always have like a soda, like a Coke Zero, usually in a bottle. And then they always, and I'm happy to drink it straight out of the bottle, but there's always a glass and some ice. And I was talking because someone had asked me a question, and I grabbed the ranch dressing because I had a salad bowl in front of me, and I grabbed the ranch dressing as I'm talking, and I pop it open, and I pour it into my glass of ice. Luckily, I had not put soda into it yet, but I poured it in because, like, you've got a bottle of soda, with the screw top, and same with and so I just and I was just like blurp, and I was like, and I've got ranch dressing on top of the ice or whatever, so I had to go get a new glass and clean that out, all that stuff. But and then I told how in the hobby, so many people will either drink their paint water or dip their brush into their coffee or tea or whatever, and it's just sort of not paying close attention, which is exactly what I was doing there. So that was kind of funny. Whether in the kitchen or the hobby room, say it with me: a falling knife has no handle. Nice. But what if you're able to catch it with your foot? No, you don't do that. My resolution for 2023 is more games, less painting, or at least completing unfinished projects. Nice. What is a good, quick, and easy booth setup for starting an airbrush? I purchased one of those cheap USB options for priming, and I don't want to coat my insides or the outsides of my hobby space. I mean, people will build stuff out of like a fan and like a furnace filter and like a cardboard box and that kind of stuff. I bought one of those kits on Amazon where it kind of folds up, but it's got like a metal thing, and there's a fan built in there, and there's also like a filter and all that stuff. And it's even got some like LED lights inside, which are sort of nice because it kind of helps to light up your painting area and stuff. And I've been real happy with that. I don't vent it like outside or anything though, because I only use it for my airbrush, and my airbrush is using compressed air, and it's compressing air from the room. So there's no fumes you have to worry about with, airbrushing normally. Well, there's no fumes you have to worry about if you're airbrushing normal acrylic paints. I think enamels and things like that, or lacquer paints, then you definitely have to worry a little bit about fumes, but that's just the fumes of the paints themselves, like drying. But with acrylics, and you're just, using normal compressed air, you don't have to worry about fumes. You do have to worry about particulates, though. So that's why I still wear like a mask with the filters on the side and all that kind of stuff. It's like rubbery, and it's got straps. And that's to keep the floating particulates of paint out of your lungs, which is where you don't want them for sure. The benefit of the hood thing is that it also helps, so I have even less of that of a worry with the particulates going into the lungs. But it just makes it so that the majority of the particulates go directly into the filter thing in the back of the hood, and then I don't have to worry about like paint dust getting everywhere, and then me having to kind of like take a damp cloth and wipe the room down every 6 months or maybe more. So yeah, that's the thing that I've really liked, because I bought that hood last year, and it's worked real nice. And the thing is like I said, it's not blowing outside. If I was going to decide, I'm going to start rattle canning down there in that room, then I would want that fan to be blowing outside, because you're trying to get the fumes from the propellant to go outside. But again, with airbrush, it doesn't matter. And the exhaust on the back of that hood is very close to the wall in my hobby area there in the airbrush room. And I've not been seeing like a dark spot on the wall where it's blowing out. The filter's getting dark, so the filter's doing its job, is my point, and it's not letting the particulate go through and then go out and hit the wall, which is what I thought would happen. But so far so good. Happy New Year from the Netherlands. I definitely am hungover. I didn't have a ton to. I had some bourbon. Close to midnight, I had some prosecco. That was pretty much about it. Chunk of sprue that kept my hobby knife from rolling off my workbench, which, because of where it was placed by necessity, it's not quite level, about 3 degrees off. Sure, I get you. Been painting a decent amount for me lately. I can tell I've gotten much better handling the brush. That's the way you learn, you know what I mean? Is by doing, for sure. Do you refer to it as a pile of shame or a pile of potential? I prefer pile of potential, I think. Let's see here. Just got Space Station Zero for Christmas. How come Starling Badger Studios wasn't in the TMAs? Great work by you and Vince. I just felt it would be a conflict of interest, but I'm glad that you're not the first person to mention that, so I'm glad to hear that. But yeah, no, it was yeah, it's been a real good year for the game company as well, so that's been really nice. Ninjon's memory of the knife throwing event is rather different. I'll have to listen to the podcast now. I didn't catch it so far. Definitions of project for me, it's a whole period and scale rather than a terrain piece or a unit that keeps the numbers down, but not the workload. Yeah. I bought a house over Christmas. Well, congrats. So all my hobby coin is set aside for closing costs and for now, but once it closes at the end of January, I'll finally have a dedicated hobby cave. That is always nice. It absolutely is. JP Got Rockets, how you doing? Currently tidying up my gaming space so I can teach bolt action to a friend later on. Happy New Year from Chester, UK. Nice. Indeed, Ninjan recounted your assassination attempt in great detail. Well, now I'm going to have to definitely listen to it because I don't remember trying to assassinate nobody. Haven't slept this late in years. Nice. My base rule when people show their miniatures to me is to never more than looks great unless they ask for feedback. Yeah, I think that's kind of important. Yeah, I think I made a video about that, about, like, if someone doesn't ask for your opinion, for sure don't give it to them. You know what I mean? I have to prevent myself from going back and improving already finished models. Keeps me from getting onto that pile of ambition. Yeah, I don't go back too much either. There's times when I probably ought to. There's some models where I should go back and just I could probably edge highlight this a little better here and there. Edge highlighting is a thing that I have gotten a little better at, I feel, over the last couple of years. So, there's times when I could be like, this could use a little bit more, but nothing usually huge, I found that kit bashing and painting up kill teams for the previous iteration was the move that leveled up my hobby painting. Nice. Roan, how you doing? An old quote regarding art I apply to painting models. It's not so much finished as it is abandoned. Yeah, that's a quote for fine art that's been around for quite some time. The thing is knowing when to abandon it. Let's say that, because you can get into a situation where, this is just it. I keep doing it. I keep doing it. I keep, and there are times when you've gone too far and you probably should have stopped earlier, but if I remember correctly from that video, I was talking about a piece that I was doing in college in a painting class, and I just kept working it. I just sort of kept making it worse to some degree. And then my professor at one point was like, actually, you probably should have stopped last week. Like you were done then, but you kept kind of going, and now here we are. So that's something to keep an eye on. So you're saying Mr. Ninus did indeed follow the time-honored tradition of any story worth telling is worth exaggerating. I mean, potentially. I don't know. Northwestern Pennsylvania just ordered Rain in Hell. Can't wait to check it out. Well, thank you very much, Anthony. I appreciate that. Yeah. both of those games have been doing real well for us, and that's been good. People have been enjoying them, and people make battle reports, and we've seen people making. I mean, on the Discord for Snarling Badger Studios, there's lots of people posting all kinds of stuff they're working on. Crews for Space Station Zero, Cabals for Rain and Hell, some terrain for both, things like that. It's been real nice to see. I've certainly had a good gulp of bestial brown brushwater more than once. Yeah, that can't, like I said, I either drink out of a mug, but it's in a different spot, or I drink out of a like water bottle kind of thing, like not like a plastic water bottle, but like a thermosy type water bottle that's got a screw top and stuff like that. So there's no way I can get my brush in there. Well, not with that attitude. Yeah, I think it helps. If you have two mugs next to each other, you are asking for trouble. It's just, if one of them is paint water and the other one's not, you are asking for trouble for sure. I use a big 32-ounce peanut butter jar for my wash water, so no confusion with my tea Earl Grey hot. Sure, makes sense. Army Painter's hobby knife has that spongy handle that usually keeps me from stabbing myself. Well, hopefully, yeah. I've avoided drinking paint water because I use the plastic measuring caps to medicine bottles to paint water. Oh, okay. Over the years, I've grown to drink with my left hand. I'm a klutz, so anything near my mouse hand is at risk. I can understand that. I've learned to place any drinks far, far away from my paint water. Hard lesson learned. Yep, absolutely. Put some soda water on top. Hidden Valley Spritz. Blah. That doesn't sound good at all. Rancho Roxo. Yeah, that was unintentional. I had never done that before though, but I was like, yeah, I was like talking or, whatever. And just because I think my mother-in-law had asked me a question about something, I don't know, I think something either about Wargaming or the YouTube channel or something, and then I was like talking about it, and yeah, so that was no good. You may have been a little drunk. I wasn't though. Then no. Hole in your house is for the 3D printer, right? Yes. Yeah. Yeah, I drilled that. And I've got all the hoses and everything set up now. What did I just get recently? I got some resin that showed up last week. My only concern now a little bit is heat. And so I was looking at different little tiny heaters to try to heat the inside of the enclosure that's around the 3D printer. I have that belt that goes around the tank it's more for people who are into brewing. I might just give it a try and see how it works, even though it's going to be kind of cold. And I know, I mean, if that thing heats up enough inside the enclosure, it should work well, but we'll see. In your professional opinion, oh shoot, where did it go? In your professional opinion, what would you say the bench press is the best lift? Your professional opinion, would you say the bench press is best lift or deadlift? I don't know anything about that stuff. Sorry, I'm not a weight lifter. I'm thinking of getting into a basic airbrush just for getting varnish on now that I'm painting more models. Yeah, varnish airbrush stuff is real nice. Honestly, it really is. Mumbly Peg. Sorry I'm late. Greetings from Baton Rouge. Well, absolutely. I'm glad to see you, Charles. I once absent-mindedly poured sweet tea on my spaghetti. See? There you go. Let's see. Happy New Year from the Greater Los Angeles metropolitan area. How you doing? I call it my pile of gray future fun. That's nice to hear. Nice. Just out of curiosity, how many people here are like me and have never painted a model miniature, but I've learned a lot watching this show from when I get around to it. Well, there's definitely a benefit to YouTube specifically, or whatever, that kind of streaming type stuff, because it used to be that like when you first started out painting, you were kind of guessing a lot. You might have found some magazines that had some tips and some like step by steps. You might have even gotten some books. GW used to sell books like, how to make terrain, how to paint miniatures, that kind of stuff, and whatever. But now with the internet, you can, like, your first miniature can be way better than somebody who 20 years ago started and painted their first miniature, just because you've got so much more information you can take in. Any kind of technique that you're interested in, you can watch a bunch of different videos of people trying it and doing it, very frequently in different ways, but you can kind of look at it and go, okay, well, this doesn't make sense to me, but I do like this idea, or, that kind of thing. And it does really help a lot, as it turns out. Again, and I made a video about this, you do actually have to do it, though. That's the trick. I'm not saying you have to, start when you want to start, but understand that watching all of the videos will help, but you still will learn the most once you actually get the brush in your hand and you start doing it. Like, the brush control and all that kind of stuff comes from not watching videos, but from actually controlling the brush, strangely enough. But you will start from a better place, very much better place than a counterpart who started 20 years ago, at that time, because you would just be in a better place because you just know, oh, well, yeah, no, you can't mix this and this because it'll do that, or all kinds of little things that very frequently people learn more, at least back in the day, more with trial and error. So, yeah. Did both games go adamantium on Wargames Vault? Yes. Rain and Hell hit adamantium in 4 months, roughly. Like, it was like late September of 2021. And Space Station Zero hit the adamantium badge, I think, in 3 months. So, yeah, a little bit quicker. Map Crow, how you doing? Happy New Year. I was painting my Tyranid Warriors until a little after midnight or something like that, just to make sure I would be painting at midnight, and then I went to bed. Nothing fancy. Nice. John Patchman, how you doing? Did you really toss a hobby knife to John Needus at VinciCon? They talked about it on Trapped Under Plastic. I don't remember. I mean, again, if I tossed a hobby knife to John, I would assume that it was closed, because I brought my Monument hobby knife that's retractable. It's a regular, like, normal X-Acto style blade, but it goes, I don't have it here next to me or whatever, but yeah. I'll have to listen to the podcast now. I split a foam pool noodle and slid it onto the edge of my desk because I hated the feel of my desk edge cutting into my arm. Nice. I have a pool noodle in the basement that I keep meaning to put on this one part in the ceiling where I have a tendency to hit my head, but it's like in this kind of side storage room that I don't go into frequently, so I kind of forget about it until the next time that I hit my head. So one of these days I will actually do that. Hopefully they sell enough for an unobtainium award. Adamantium is the top. They don't go past that. Unobtainium, you wouldn't be able to obtain it, strangely enough. So there you go. For the award show, you should try doing a People's Choice Award with maybe 5 options. I would have to plan ahead more. I'm not real good at that, unfortunately. But yes, it's not a bad idea. I like to compliment nice work. I always feel it's honest. Even if you don't like what they personally did, you can appreciate the plastic not being gray. For sure, for sure. Sounds like either Vince will have the truth about a thrown knife, or it's the last we see of Scott and John. I mean, I don't know that I could do any kind of... Those two are younger than I am. I'm sure that they would bounce back pretty easily. I'm placing a court case to get the TMA 2022 results overturned unless you want to accept the best YouTuber and best mini wager awards. Indeed. Yeah, I'm for sure not the best mini painter, nor the best YouTuber. I mean, it depends on, I guess, what you decide best is based off of, I guess, for sure. But yeah, no, I don't feel that I'm in either of those categories. So are you hungover? I know I am. I'm maybe just a little tiny bit. Just a little. Yeah. There's a little bit of crapulence, maybe, but that could be also from just eating a lot of snacks late at night as well, and then not getting very much sleep. All of those things combined. It's what you call a perfect storm. Hello from Newfoundland. Finished building a custom Chaos Knight using the top of a Lord of Skulls. Nice. First time I played Space Station Zero at a friend's house, we used Lego space minifigures, and it was brilliant. Nice. Well, I'm glad to hear that. And that works great. I can understand that. Current project, Forbidden Psalm, printing and painting. Really like the footprint of the game. Happy 2023. Yeah, that's the thing I'm really looking forward to also with The Last War is I want to, like I said, I'm kind of slowly working on this kind of small 2 foot by 2 foot like almost like a no man's land kind of thing. I don't want to go crazy deep with trenches, I don't think. I mean, there's a part of me that kind of does, but then I'm like, if you put a trench in this piece, then there's always a trench there, you know? But it's real hard to make a modular trench, you know? But yeah, I don't know. But definitely just the fact that it's not just straight, you know? Adam, you got a Geiger counter for Christmas? Is radiation an issue in your area? It's not. No, it wasn't so much like it was a Christmas present. It was it was a Christmas present I bought myself. I forget who I was following on Twitter, but it was some artist that I follow on Twitter, and they just were like, "Oh, I got this super cool Geiger counter from this like military surplus online place, and it's really cool. And I don't know what I'm going to do with it, but it's neat. And it was only $20, and I was like, $20, you say? And so I ordered a Geiger counter. I don't think it works. It does basically run off of what we believe to be. We were looking at it a little bit last night. I had some friends over and stuff. My wife and I did, and someone asked about it, and it uses a specific type of battery, which one of my friends looked up like on Wikipedia or whatever, and then after reading like 2 paragraphs about this battery, it was like also like down towards the bottom. Frequently, this battery is also known as a D battery, and we're like, well, why didn't you just lead with that? You know what I mean? But they didn't. So yeah, I think a D battery would make it work, but maybe not. It looks pretty clean. I doubt if it's ever been used. It has a sticker on the side that says that it was like inspected in like 1991. So it's been around for a while, but it's in great shape, and it was $20. So I don't know. I could take the stuff out of the inside if I got real fancy, and then I don't know, put in like a Raspberry Pi and I don't know, Arduino. I mean, I've got a friend who could do that kind of stuff, and I would probably have to pay him to do it, which is fine. But I just thought it was kind of cool, and currently it's sitting on a shelf. So, you know. I use the bottle myself for my drink, and I have never mixed up my water and tried to drink paint juice. Yep, no, that does definitely help. A little while ago, I dipped my brush in a freshly poured bourbon. Ooh, that's not good for the brush or for the bourbon, I wouldn't think. The trick to those small heaters is to keep them low. Heat rises. True. I don't know about you, but the most bothersome part of working in the cold for me is cold feet. I have nice slippers that I like to wear in the basement because, yeah, it does get real cold down there in the winter. And so, like, sometimes in the low 50s, which is, you know, a little troublesome. I am missing a bunch here. Where we go? There we go. Why I took an old tea set that has no similarity to anything I would drink out of. Makes sense. Yep. Using a specific thing for paint water and nothing else like a mug is key to never drinking paint water. Nothing is worse than Vallejo fluorescent paints in flavor. Yeah, no, I could see that. That's one of the many reasons why I like those GW like paint cups, those gray ones. I just like them because they don't look like something you would drink out of at all. And also on the bottom, they've got those little ridges and stuff. So when you brush your brush off in the bottom and everything, it kind of knocks the paint out a little bit easier, which I like. I use the paint puck. Oh, sure. Yeah. Paint puck is kind of like a suction cup version of those ridges that you put on the bottom of any kind of glass or whatever. Before it was always cold drinks in a soda bottle. Sure. Excuse me. Let's see here. I've got a reptile lamp heating my printer enclosure right now. It's gotten me through 2 Canadian winters, but no problem. A reptile lamp, you say? I should look into that. That's not a bad idea. Let me see here. My family always warms up maple syrup in a gray mug type thing. Plenty of times someone has doused the pancakes with coffee in a similar looking mug. I could see that being tricky for sure. I remember my mom once pouring Coke over her roast. Well, I mean, sometimes you do pour Coke over stuff like in the cooking phase, but not usually afterwards. Or sometimes it's 7-Up, right? Like don't you pour 7-Up over a ham or something like that? I don't know. I swear I've heard about that before. I use the Citadel water thingy, not the least because it has a wide base and my cursed swinging hands. Yeah, that's the thing too, is it's also a little bit harder probably to knock over because does have a flared base to it, which is nice. I watched for almost 18 months before finally painting. Once I did, I definitely felt more comfortable. Yeah, no, that definitely help for sure. Hey, Kelly, how you doing? Time for some Alka-Seltzer. Yeah, no, I don't. I mean, I don't feel bad. I just don't quite feel 100%. But again, that could just be from not enough sleep. It could have been from too many snacks. We went to Aldi and got a whole bunch of weird snacks, which we like, and there was vegetables and but eating a whole bunch of like green bean, raw green beans, dipped in like dill ranch or whatever like that at 1:30 in the morning is probably not necessarily a great idea. Coke or Pepsi is a regular ingredient to tenderize and flavor ribs. So on a roast, might not be so bad. See, that's what I thought. Good morning from a gloomy Northern California. Well, how you doing? My first mini back in the hobby after 20 years was better than anything I painted as a teen thanks to YouTube tutorials. Yeah, I do definitely think that we're in a great time for learning, for sure. Not just not just wargaming, but all kinds of things. The fact that I have been able to fix 3 different showers without having to call a plumber is pretty cool, because I don't know how those things work, but with a little bit of YouTube, I can be like, oh yeah, look at that. Most recently was Thanksgiving. This year I'm going to paint together with my 9-year-old. Well, that'll be fun. Got him a Citadel starting set with some paints and Space Marines for him to paint, and we'll start painting the new Hero Quest together. Nice. In 2023, I will achieve a clean and organized hobby space as it was foretold. Nice. Well, that's a good thing to do. The trick to those small heaters is to keep them low. Oh, yeah. No, I think I read that one. Thanks for the show from San Antonio, Texas. Absolutely, Max. I use a pipe heater for greenhouses in an enclosure for my resin printer. I also use an Inkbird temp controller for fine control of the temperature. Usually keeps it within 2.5 centigrade Celsius range. Nice. Try working on minis when you have an essential tremor. Makes painting fun too. Yeah, no, I can understand that. It's easier than ever to get info on model painting. The Citadel How to Paint guides were amazing, though, especially with charts with color mixing. I learned color mixing in college because I went to school for art. But yeah, it is like understanding that, especially if you want to mix a lot, it makes a lot of sense. But if you're like me and you don't generally mix a lot of paints, then you just need to, I guess, own more paints, which is what I've ended up doing in most situations. In 3 months, we will be asking, did you really launch a knife from a potato cannon? I don't even know that I've ever fired a potato cannon. I had some neighbors that had a potato cannon when I was a little kid. How do you balance creativity with content creation? Last thing I want to do when I'm in a hobby flow state is to stop and set up my camera. It's mainly kind of separating those things. So what I mean by that is I have projects that I work on for myself, and then I have projects that I work on for the channel, or for, again, not just for YouTube here, but for Twitch as well. Like, so at any given time, I will be working on a project for Twitch, and I will only work on it for Twitch. So like, I'll be working on a project and I will just be working on it on Twitch, and then it's not like the next time when I come back, like let's say we do, a Monday night and I've got this model at this point, and then Friday morning I'm streaming again and I've worked ahead a bunch. I always like to basically like just, if it takes, 3 weeks of twice a week to get to the point where I need to get for this model or group of models, so be it, if I just sit down and paint them like with my headphones on, listening to an audiobook or a podcast or whatever, and just going to town that way, I can get through that stuff a lot quicker usually. But that's not the point of Twitch, me live streaming, or that's not the point of me working on projects here for YouTube, and painting those things. I am working on, I need to do this, and I need to do it in a way that comes across well in, footage or live streaming or whatever. So, but then there are also projects that I'm working on the side that are not things that I sit and film. And so those I have a tendency, like, I can see myself potentially, my plan is hopefully to make some footage, some videos about the display piece that I'm planning for the Nova Open. The Capital Palette is the name of the painting competition that I want to enter this year. So that model's already built, but I didn't like film myself building it. And I don't necessarily know if I'll film myself even painting it. I think that I'll be talking about it at certain points, but I don't want to, like, because you're right, it is difficult. Like the few times that I've like shot in the airbrush room, it is very difficult to be like airbrushing, but doing it in a position so that the camera can see it the way that you're used to doing it. There's a lot of painters out there who are like, I can't ever stream my painting on Twitch because I paint in this really weird position. I hold it really close, or I do whatever, and no camera can get in there in a way that can make this like viewable and enjoyable to people. I have had to, over the last 2.5 years of me being on a Twitch, kind of train myself to hold it in the right spot, so that I am pretty sure that I'm in the camera's spot. Like I have a little monitor across from me on the desk, so I can just glance up and go, oh, now I got to move it a little bit to the left. Oh, no, a little bit to the right. So I'm in the shot, and sometimes I forget, but it's just, as you do it more, you try to pay more attention to making sure you're in the right spot for the shot. But I'll tell you that I'd much rather paint not on Twitch, because then I can be in whatever position I want and however I need to get comfortable and stuff like that. Like, I've had people ask me, they're like, well, why do you only paint for 3 hours at a time on Twitch? And it's because by the end of 3 hours, I am sore. You know what I mean? Like, I am like, you kind of have to hold a certain position and all that kind of stuff, and it's not easy. So yeah, it takes a bit of work for sure to kind of do that. But I think that the important thing is to make sure to have projects you work on that are not content, and then projects you work on that are. But that was a good question. Now, remembering working for GW, my boss putting a knife, bare blade, in his back pocket and forgetting about it until too late. Ooh, yeah, no, I would never want to put a blade in my pocket. Certainly not the back pocket. You're going to totally get that in the butt. That's no fun. I still have a shoebox of old lead models from the late 70s and early 80s that I painted with Humbrol and Testors enamels, and some of them aren't half bad, surprisingly. I painted with some Testors enamel. It's there's some early BattleTech stuff that I did. I still show off that atlas from time to time on my Twitch stream, so I can compare, like, this is kind of where I started. This is one of my earliest ever models, and then, and here's some other ones, the ones that I'm more recent with. And it helps to kind of be able to compare and contrast that way. Any excuse me, any benefits to the high-end dry brushes you see on the popular YouTube painting videos over makeup brushes, in your opinion? I don't know, because I haven't tried them all. That being said, I generally stick with the makeup brushes. I believe, and I don't know this for sure, but I believe one of the benefits to the high-end companies, makeup brushes are generally not meant to A, last real long, or B, get soaked in water much for cleaning, I don't believe. Again, I'm not a makeup wearer, but I don't believe you're supposed to like dunk them in water and to try to clean them out too much. Whereas normally with paint brushes, that's what you do. Therefore, I think that the glue that's kind of helping to hold in a bunch of the bristles and stuff like that on cheap makeup brushes is probably not as good with getting wet. And so I think that cheap makeup brushes can fall apart a little bit more quickly if you dunk them and really get in there to try to clean them out. If you don't dunk them as much, like if this, let's say that the tip of my finger here is the ferrule, right? This is the metal part of any given kind of type brush. And then the bristles would be down here. If you dunk into the water level and not quite, you try to not even get the ferrule wet, you just kind of dunk the stuff in there, kind of wiggle it around, pull it out, and then piece of paper towel. That's the way I generally do to clean my makeup brushes like that. And I made a video about that, how to clean makeup brushes for, dry brushing. But with a normal brush, you submerge usually the whole thing. And you're, again, if you've got those little paint pot thingy in the bottom with the fingers, or the little ridges like for the GW one, you're dunking the entire thing, but those are designed to be submerged. So I think that's one possibility. And again, I don't know that for sure, but I have a suspicion that's part of it. Another part of it too is that I think there's just sometimes a little bit more, because I really like the little dry brushes. They've got 3 different dry brushes from Monument Hobbies. There's a DD1, DD2, and a DD3. And those I like for being able to get into kind of nooks and crannies, specifically the DD1. I like that one because it's a lot smaller, but it's still got a nice softness to it. It's not too coarse. I want to try, there's this painter named Richard Gray, and he's done a bunch of videos. If you go look him up on YouTube, he's done a bunch of videos where he does a lot of stippling, and not like the stippling that I do for weathering, where I'm taking a little bit of contrast and I'm like putting in some little dots to make it look like it's kind of rusty or something like that in like the corner of an armor panel. He is like painting the entire model, where like first he starts out with a dark red and he's just poking it and stabbing it everywhere. And then he immediately takes like a lighter red and does the same and is able to blend with the stippling. And I would like to try to practice something like that, but I think I need a little bit better brush than a normal makeup brush for that. So that's why I bought a bunch of the dry brushes from Monument, because I want to use those for stippling. And so then in that situation, I can definitely see why that's better than a regular makeup brush. But for the most part, for most dry brushing needs, I'm going to go with cheap makeup brushes. That's my personal preference. Again, you have to be a little more careful with them when you're cleaning them, but that's about it. Otherwise, I think it's, especially when you look at the money, like the big fat makeup brushes that I get, those elf makeup brushes that I get sometimes $5 or $6 max. Like that's the most expensive brush you're going to get. Most makeup brushes, well, most cheap makeup brushes that you get are considerably cheaper, as it turns out. There are expensive makeup brushes out there too, for people who are, professional makeup people and stuff like that or whatever. But yeah, that's like those elf brushes that I like to use on models and things like that. It's called ELF, which I think stands for eyes, lips, and face. Those brushes are evidently terrible for makeup. I've talked to people who are makeup wearers and they're like, yeah, these brushes are garbage on your face, but they work pretty well on your models. I'm like, okay, cool. So that's why I use them. They may be younger, but you have punk rock on your side. Well, you're a pretty darn good hobby content creator. Well, I'll take it. Thank you. I appreciate that. Been resin printing the new Loot Studio Dwarves all week in my 55-degree basement. Not one print fail yet. I have printed dozens of minis in that temperature with no issues at all. I've just heard it's not ideal. So if I can make things a little bit heading closer to ideal, that is, I guess, for me, something I'm trying. Any advice for handling gray painted bases? My bases seem boring under most lighting conditions. I generally like to keep the rims around the edges black. The actual surface of the base depends on what I'm working on these days. Generally, if I'm doing sci-fi, I go with bases that look kind of like asphalt, but with a little bit of rubble on them. I don't try to go too fancy. And if I'm doing something that's more fantasy based, then I have a tendency to go with like more kind of mud. So I go with brown and things like that, and some rocks, and every once in a while a little bit of little tufts of little grass tuft things, but that's about it. I don't like flock. I don't like I don't like green grass type stuff on my miniature models, you know, the bases and things. So pool noodles come in handy for all kinds of stuff. Use them on my kayak for different things. Also use them around the top of my hobby cart for safety. Well, that's a good idea. In my book, Adam, you're the best hobby YouTuber, at least for me. Your enthusiasm for this hobby never fails to inspire me. Well, I appreciate that, John. Thank you. Let's see here. There is no best, just preference and favorites. I think that's probably true for sure. I mean, you could sit down and say who has the most views or who has the most subscribers or who has the most hours filmed or all kinds of stuff like that. If you picked like an actual like a number and said this is what we're going to decide is best. But most people I think don't think that way. So sure, I get that. Uncle Adam is one of the streams I support with Patreon. I guess I vote with my dollars. Well, I appreciate that as well. But yeah, thank you very much, Terrence. Trenches must have traverses, that zigzag pattern. That would be cool. I own a bunch of those like trenches that they made for 40K like 10 years ago. But they're not so much trenches as they're just like walls, kind of. They're not, you know, like, but they, yeah, I don't know. They kind of look like trenches, but they don't, you know, obviously can't go down below the surface of the table. That would be weird. But I've never painted them. I like built them. There was some gluing you had to do. There was a lot of clipping, of course, all that kind of stuff. And I should really someday paint them, I suppose. Happy New Year from the Thumb of West Virginia. Going to spend the day working on GW Lord of the Rings minis, as some folks in my area have taken an interest in it. Nice. Well, that's cool to hear, James. Crapulence sums up how I felt this morning of TMX after our big night out at Kelly's. Oh, sure. Yeah. Yeah, I think it was this morning as I was just kind of scrolling through Twitter that I came across. There's a woman that I follow whose name is Susie Dent, I believe her name is, and she's a linguist or something. I don't know. She's all about vocabulary, and she tweets about different, you know, words and things like that. And yeah, she had mentioned that the word crapulence is it's a feeling of like overindulging both in drink and food and stuff like that from some sort of party, usually the night before or something along those lines. And so I'm like, I think I have a little bit of that. Just received a set of your favorite brushes for Christmas. Well, that was very good to hear. That's good to hear. I mean, I'm glad you got them before they went out of stock again. Because yeah, the 4th edition is now out of stock. I am way behind now because I was talking for a long time. There we go. Crapulence. I caught that word. Gonna break them in today. Nice. Good to hear. Liquefied pork. If money is tight, the liking videos and subscribing helps, right? Yeah. Oh yeah. No, absolutely. Like liking videos. Like if you liked this video, you know, you click the little thing down there. It's a lovely New Year's gift, and it doesn't cost anything. I remember digging a small trench and foxhole in late January in negative 30 degrees Celsius. It wasn't very deep. Yeah, I wouldn't think so, no. Armorcast made some nice resin modular trenches decades ago. I had the full set until they went on eBay. Yeah, I definitely, for the last war, I have started 2 pieces of terrain that are armor cast, like broken brick walls, kind of like the corner of a building, but only 1 story high, as opposed to the standard like 2 story high, but they're like longer. And I cut some MDF and then glued these things on there, and I textured it mostly with the coarse monument, you know, texturing stuff, but also because I wanted to look like it was a wooden floor until the building was all sort of knocked down and everything like that. I used these little thin wooden coffee stirrers that I bought on Amazon, like a big honking box of 1,000 of them or something like that. And then I glued them all down one by one to make these floor, like to make it look like a wooden floor kind of. And it's pretty cool. Dipping the brush in bourbon is alcohol abuse? Sure. When I started painting, I used Floquil enamels for model railroad use. The main thing that taught me was to paint quick because they had a tendency to dry in the brush. Oh yeah, you don't want that. Radiation monitors are supposed to be recalibrated every 3 to 5 years, but that's for them to give those precise readings. If it's just a yes, no for radiation, batteries are all they need. Nice. When I worked for the Corps of Engineers, we had to screen every shipment with a Geiger counter for reasons. I suggest you run about in the mountains or other natural environment and see what pops. Oh, there you go. Got a laser designator from eBay and it still powers on, but I'm terrified to point at anything because who knows? You know what I mean? Yeah, I can understand that. I use an old Rice-A-Roni microwave cup for my paint pot. One way of recycling the plastic. I mean, that makes sense, yeah. Coke over ham? I swear I've heard of 7-Up over ham. Maybe Coke over ham. Makes sense too, yeah. Make a glaze or something like that. Happy New Year from Rhode Island. Introduced a friend to Aeronautica Imperialis last night, and he ordered a starter box today. Nice. That's it's another person you've got attached to Adeptus Flyeronicus, as I call it. There you go. Brent, Goobertown, has footage of his cat enjoying some of his delicious paint water. Diesel would probably drink paint water. He probably would. Diesel hangs out on the couch a lot these days. His favorite place is hanging out on the couch, specifically between my wife and I. That makes him very happy, and he purrs a lot when that happens. But we have this little kind of like coffee table thing that he can get at pretty close to the it's like it's not so much a coffee tables, it's like one of those like IKEA like laptop kind of things, so it can be pretty close to the edge of the couch or whatever. And my wife had a glass of water on there one time, and Diesel was like, well, I'm just going to drink this water instead of walking all the way to the kitchen. And he started drinking. So now we just always have a glass of water for him on that table so he can, you know, drink water whenever he wants instead of having to go all the way to the kitchen, which is like over there. Yeah, he's a big fan of that now. So he drinks out of there all the time. So we now just have Diesel has his own cup on that table there so he can drink a lot of water, which is important for cats, specifically older cats, I think, too. So his kidneys are in good shape. And every time we take him to the doctor, we're always like, he doesn't have cat diabetes, does he? And they're like, nope. Because he does drink a lot more water than any other cat we've ever had. I mean, the other ones drink relatively a decent amount, but he goes to town. Longtime fan, but first time watching live from Port Stanley, Falkland Islands. Well, how you doing, Daniel? I hope you're having a good 2023 so far, you know. I use the skulls of my enemies as a paint cup. I don't know why no one has made a paint cup that is kind of a skull, especially GW. I mean, come on. It seems like it's pretty much right up their street. Are you thinking of beer can based turkey? I don't know. Soak a ham and Sprite or 7-Up to draw out the excess salt. Works great. Oh, see, there you go. See? Like you, I have type 2 and my circulation sucks, and when I go to the basement, my hands get freezing cold. I do have some little glovey, like fingerless glove things. Well, they're not even like fingerless gloves. Like fingerless gloves at least usually kind of go around each finger. These like stop here. So, you know, fingers, but there is a thing that your thumb goes out. My wife made those for me, and I use those not so much for painting. I can't really paint with them on, but when I am like, when it's winter and I am editing or playing a video game or something like that, then I do have a tendency to wear them because it does get chilly down there. I find that the washes make the best tea. Contrast is a little hit or miss. Morning coffee calls for a base layer for the most kick. Nice. Feel you on the lack of sleep in my second 12-hour shift this weekend as we speak. Indeed. It feels odd. I think I'm using the same glass for paint water for 20-ish years. No risk of confusion is acquired from the family. Oh, yeah, that's the thing, too, is that generally paint water glasses, if you use the same one over and over and over again, they will get squirrely, and you'd be like, oh no, this is definitely something I want to drink out of because they'll get icky. I saw a collection of TikTokers making book nooks once, and one dripped paint into her tea but was determined not to waste the tea bag. Well, you know, just tuned in. Is that an effing Birds mug? Yeah, my wife bought it for me. Happy New Year from Missouri. For Lost War, I had the thought to create 4 to 6 1-foot by 1-foot boards that could have some trenches that may not line up, but it allows for modular play ideas. Yeah, I could see doing that too. I mean, it's a 2-foot by 2-foot board, so you've got 4 different choices, and so you could do a bunch of different things that way. I would really want them to figure out a good way to like almost like magnetize or stick together in some fashion, but that would be a little difficult. If your Geiger counter is working, try it in your cellar because of radon. Would a Geiger counter pick up radon? Oh, I had no idea. I think it's tuned for gamma radiation. I swear I saw something about gamma. So I don't know, would it pick up all kinds of radiation or just gamma? I'm not sure. I could go get it. It's neat. Just got my first Pro Acryl paint, and I'm kind of confused about how the bottle works. Well, so inside the bottle okay, so you have to unscrew it, right? The whole black part on the top of it, because there's going to be like a little, it's not foil, it's like foam, a little thing in there that you need to peel off and throw away, because that's how, so the bottle itself is sealed, but you have to unscrew the whole cap. I don't have a bottle here, but you have to unscrew the whole cap, and then inside there'll be two pieces of foam. There's one that's stuck on the top of the bottle that you have to peel off and then throw away, and then there's another piece of kind of like foam stuff in there that has a hole in it, and that you want to keep in there because that basically creates a gasket between the black plastic thing and the top of the bottle. They probably have a video about that on their YouTube channel, but maybe they don't, and if they don't, they should. So yeah, it's a good idea. Started painting a long time before the internet and accidentally discovered wet blending before I ever heard of it was a thing. Learning curve was definitely longer back then, but was rewarding. Sure, I can get that. It's been a while since I caught you live. Happy New Year from Cyprus. Absolutely. Good to see you. You have to twist the nozzle to open the older Pro Acryl caps. They're starting to use different caps. Oh, really? I haven't seen that. When was the last time that I bought a Pro Acryl? Well, no, I got some of the washes recently. They seem the same, but I could be wrong. It's hard to resist the modern mantra of monetize everything. Sure. Finished printing my Colosseum model. Now I need to prime and start painting it. Nice. I have a few military model painting books by Shepard Payne that were useful in my early mini painting days. I mean, yeah, I learned a bunch from books as well, and magazines and stuff back in the early days. But then it was really like old school, like YouTube stuff and things like that for sure. Nick is back. Let's see here. High-end dry brush brushes are the same gimmick of GW's official Citadel hobby knife. Makeup brushes are 100% the way to go. You get 99% of the same exact results. Like I said, I wonder about the longevity of cheap makeup brushes, but again, they're also cheap. So, if you buy 4 cheap makeup brushes at $3 a piece in comparison to one expensive, fancy dry brush that is $25 or something like that, then you have to ask, about the efficacy of that. You know what I mean? I own both makeup brushes and the Artist Opus brushes. While the Opus are nice, I prefer the makeup as I'm less worried about ruining them. Yeah, for me too. That's definitely a thing where I'm concerned about with expensive brushes, like expensive natural hair brushes. One of the reasons I don't use them is because I'm always like, well, this is a $25 brush or something. I don't want to bust it, or not even bust it, but like screw up the bristles. My best mate is a makeup artist. The proper brushes that can be cleaned and last are ungodly expensive. The stuff we buy isn't built to last like that. Yeah. I mean, I've got a friend, she's a hairdresser, and like the scissors that she pays for are like really crazy expensive, but it's a business expense. I get that. Happy New Year from Paradise, Newfoundland. I've been watching for about 8 months, and I've almost finished painting a Command edition. Thanks for all your tips and inspiration. Well, that's very cool, Bill. Nice to hear. Let's see here. I can usually find brand name artist brushes in discount chains. Nice. I have bought cheap flat brushes for dry brushing for years. After all, dry brushing Rex brushes, they have a limited number of uses before they're destroyed, so makeup brushes are a boon. Absolutely, yeah. I like the makeup brushes a lot. You can achieve pretty high-end stippling weathering results with old, worn-out regular brushes. Just a matter of experimenting with how hard or soft you hit the surface of the model. That makes sense, yeah. When my brushes are no longer any use, I usually glue alligator clips to them for part holders. Good idea. Adam, what is egg gypped? So, at some point, in the airport on the way to Vince's place in Ohio several weeks back. So I flew there, Sam flew there, Scott and John flew there because they're even further away from him. Like, I think Scott and John drove to Vince's house one time, and I think it was like 13 or 14 hours. Like, from my house to Vince's house is about 9.5 hours, and Vince has like got no problem driving that. He's like, yeah, that's fine. He's fine with that. I don't like to drive that far at all. So I was like, I will fly. But anyway, at some point, I think in the airport on the way to Vince's place, Sam came up with this idea for a game, and it was about eggs, and he was calling it. It was like ancient Egypt, but he was calling it ancient Egypt, and I think it was mainly a joke. And and he kept bringing it up during the thing when we were at Vince's and stuff, and I don't know, it got funnier every time. I don't know, it was very strange. And then he decided that it was a sci-fi like offshoot, which is called the Eggs of Saturn or the Rings of. It was very So yeah, it's a thing that Sam keeps bringing up, and it's I don't know that he actually has any ideas about it other than the fact that he thinks it's funny. I don't know that there's actually any. Like, because I don't think you'd want to actually play with real eggs, because that would be a mess, potentially. So, yeah. Most outrageous project out there for dry brushing is GW's official dry brush, meaning it's literally a generic square wide brush that they put the name Citadel on, charge $20 for. Citadel brushes are pretty expensive. Not all of them, but a lot of them. I don't know if they even make these anymore, but for a while they were selling, like, natural hair brushes that were supposed to be like, they were the best brushes that they were selling at the time, and this is probably 5 years ago, and they were called artificer brushes, and they were 26 or 27 bucks, and I bought one time, and I've never used it. It is still in the tube, and I'm just like, every once in a while I come across it and I'm like, oh yeah, there's that brush, and I'm like, and yeah, I don't know. I've bought some Rosemary & Co. natural hair brushes. I've not used those. I own some Monument natural hair brushes. One of these days I will start using them, and I'll see if all of a sudden I'll become a convert. But the one benefit is this. I have gotten better at cleaning my brushes, not just in technique, but in like remembering I should do it. That will make your natural hair brushes last longer, actually washing them. It has certainly made my synthetic brushes last longer. I have been using the same 3 brushes that came in the kit, the Uncle Adam's favorite brushes from Monument Hobbies. It's a 00, a 2, and a 4. I've been using those same 3 brushes as my daily drivers since Black Friday 2021. So at this point now, 13 plus months. Those have been the 3 brushes that I use, except for dry brushing and stuff like that, pretty much all the time. And when you use a decent brush soap, I use the Monument brush soap, Jen's Drunken Brush-tastic Goop, or whatever it's called. When you get kind of into the habit of cleaning them, they just last so much longer. And you really need to clean natural hair brushes, from what I understand, because otherwise they will go bad on you, and then you're like, oh, this $20 brush, and like throw it in the garbage. So yeah, let's not do that. I came to this channel for the hobby advice and stayed for the age-appropriate punk rock. Well, there you go. There you go. Can't go wrong with classic black base edges. I'm a big fan of the black edges, the black rims on bases, but you can do whatever you want. Vince will tell you that you can use whatever color you want as long as it's black, but I will just say, if you want to do, bright orange, knock yourself out. I, however, will continue to do black because that's what I prefer. Have you used contrast paints through the airbrush? Do they keep the same contrast properties that way? Yes and no. So yes, I've used them through the airbrush. They do not do the contrast thing when you fire them through an airbrush. What they do, however, is they become what they used to call, or still call, I guess, technically in scale modeling, they become filters. So because it's transparent, you're not covering the other color. You're putting like a transparent filter over the color, which is what you're doing with a brush when you're putting contrast over, say, black and white zenithal or something like that. You are basically just kind of colorizing it. So the benefit, but it doesn't do the sinks into the crevices, pulls away from the highlights kind, or the edges stuff that normally those types of contrast paints, that's what they do when you put them on thick with a brush. It does not do that though when you do that with an airbrush. But what it does do is just becomes a transparent kind of shade that kind of goes over stuff. A little bit better than the washes, honestly. But that's what so the Army Painter's, the Army Painter speed paints, because they're already in a dropper bottle, I keep those in my airbrush room because it's very easy to just drip them into the airbrush and then spray them on like terrain or any other kind of bigger project and stuff like that. Even sometimes small projects when you're like, I need this all to get a little grungy, but not too grungy. Boom. The reason I don't use contrasts for that is because they're in a pot, and it's real hard to get like 4 drips out of a pot into your airbrush. There's techniques you can use, and some people will be like, oh, just get a little dropper squeezy thing, and I'm like, yeah, that's or I'll just use the speed paints from Army Painter, and that works just fine. But when I am at my hobby desk and I've got a brush in my hand, I don't usually want to use speed paints because I got to put them in something so that I can then dip my brush into them, whereas the contrast paints are already in a pot, so I just go boop, and it's so that's kind of what I do. But yeah, they don't do the contrasts, speed paints, none of those. They don't act the same way when you fire them through an airbrush as they do when you use them, slopped on with a regular brush. I don't enjoy basing, so I just mix both textures with a dry brush to finish. Yeah, I mean, some people don't like basing. I don't want my bases to take away from the model too much, which is why I keep my bases generally a bit subtle. But it depends, Again, I'm not also painting much in the way of display stuff yet. So the display project I'm going to be working on for this year for the Nova Open contest, that one is definitely... Like, I've got ideas of what I'm going to do in the basing, and the basing is going to have to be a little... Like, it's going to be one of the first models in a really long time where I'm going to be painting the model separate from the base. I don't usually do that, so... Makeup brushes work best for zenithal right when they're brand new, then they tend to diminish as they get worn out. Yeah, I think that's true. When they're worn, you can then transition over to using them for general dry brushing. Sure. A big thing that I've been doing, too, lately is instead of trying to... If you're doing a zenithal type thing specifically, rather than putting paint on the brush and then trying to get most of it off on a piece of paper towel, instead what I'll use is like a shiny like magazine style paper or anything like that that's kind of almost glossy paper, but not like hard gloss, but like definitely like a semi-gloss type paper, because then it doesn't suck as much of the moisture out as well, so you don't get that dusty look as much. It works a little better, I find. So yeah, that's what I've been doing a lot lately. I usually have black base edges, but have sometimes continued the rottenness of some Death Guard over the edge, and some Cornate figs have reddish edges. Sure, I can see that. Midwinter Minis has some great videos on easy homemade texture paints for basing, like coffee grounds mixed with paint. I've always heard that if you're going to do that, you really have to almost like bake the coffee grounds to really get the texture, like especially like, and also dirt. Like if you go outside and just find a bunch of dirt and then bring it in the house and be like, I'm going to use this for texturing. I've heard you're supposed to like put it on a piece of tin foil and like a, not a cake pan, but like a cookie sheet, and then bake it like at relatively low temperature for a while to really get all the moisture out of there. Because the thing is, you don't want the moisture to come out once you've already primed over the top of it and painted over the top of it and used glue and all that kind of stuff and blah, let's see here. Did you ever get around to trying AP airbrush paints with a brush? Are there any colors you recommend in particular? Thanks. I haven't actually. I probably should. Again, the issue to some degree is that all my airbrush paints are in my airbrush room. I actually bought one of those acrylic. They get used in nail salons. It's like a clear plastic acrylic thing that you screw to the wall, and then you can put all kinds of little bottles of nail polish in there, so you have all the different colors. Well, I just bought one of those. Screwed it to the wall in the airbrush room, and that's where all of my Army Painter air paints are. Like, they take up the entire thing, because I got the huge massive set or whatever. But yeah, I know I should probably do that and see how they. I mean, I'm assuming they work probably just fine. I just don't know if they work as fine as, let's say, the Vallejo model metallic air, airbrush silver that I like to use with a brush all the time. It'll be interesting to see though, but I haven't. I don't think I've tried that yet. I've been using the same paint water container for over 20 years. It's just a plastic Parmesan cheese container, about 6 inches tall and 2 inches wide. Nice. Let's see here. Nick looks excited to be here. Well, Nick is always excited to be here. In my hands, everything has the longevity of cheap makeup brushes, so cheap it is. There you go. Good brushes are like good books, useless unless you use them. You're not wrong. No, I know what you mean. Hey, Adam, have you watched Wednesday yet? Wednesday. Oh, the show. Oh, on Netflix. Not yet. No, we're gonna though eventually. We're watching right now the Peripheral, which I have a hard time saying. It's one of those words I'm not good at. Which is on Amazon Prime, and it's based off of a novel by William Gibson, the writer of Neuromancer, Count Zero, Mona Lisa Overdrive, like kind of the very frequently known as the godfather of like cyberpunk to some degree. Yeah, so that show's real good. I like that. We're almost done with it. But yeah, we like that a good deal. And then there's a bunch of stuff we want to watch, but Wednesday is on the list. We're just slow. We don't binge a lot. We've got other stuff going on. I do what Sam Lenz does. I use 95% cheap Walmart brushes for most models. Not necessary to buy expensive brushes. Only thing I use expensive brushes on is very specific, tiny details. Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of that. He's for years and years he's used like real inexpensive brushes for like most of the heavy lifting on the model, and then towards the end, that's when you switch over to the fancy stuff. Makes a lot of sense. I think I recall Sam Lenz saying he just used cheap synthetic brushes. I took heart in that since I've bought loads of cheap synthetics for the years, and I just keep buying those and painting them. Yeah, there was a specific brand, sax, like saxophone, like SAX, or is it SACKS? No, I think it's SAX, sax. There was a brand that's, what was that? Who owns it? A company called School Specialty or something like that. But yeah, I know he was buying those online because you could get them for like a couple of bucks. And so you use it for a while. It's kind of a big, it's not a big brush, but it's a decent sized brush, got a nice belly to it, will hold a bunch of paint, comes to a pretty good point for a while until it doesn't. And then you're like, okay, cool, chuck that, start another one. That kind of thing. Makes sense. First time watching live from Bristol, England. Well, thank you very much, Sean. The egg game makes me think of the old Clayorama game from Out of the Pages, the old Dungeon magazine. Terrible mess to play. However, it was a load of fun and easy to play early on a hangover morn. Oh, nice. I know there's a game out there right now called Necromolds. It's aimed a little bit more towards kids for sure, but it's basically like a miniatures game with like Play-Doh. So you have these molds, these like plastic molds. You put some Play-Doh-y type stuff in there, and you close it, and you open it up, and now you have like a little skeleton or something like that, kind of like but it's made out of a lump of Play-Doh or whatever. And there's other types of like monsters and things like that. I think it's called Necromolds. So take a look at that. I've seen. Who did I see most recently playing it with his kid? Matthias from. He's one of the two guys. He's one of the two main guys that runs Adepticon. There's Matthias and Hank, and Matthias posted something recently on Facebook. He was playing Necromolds with his. I think he's got a 9-year-old, but I could have made that up. I mean, yeah, he's definitely got kids. I just don't remember if I made up the age or not. But yeah. I bought some of Foundry's natural sable brushes, really nice quality and pretty good prices for higher end stuff. Well, that's pretty cool. Where is this hobby going? Costs are going through the roof. Costs are going through the roof for GW stuff for sure. Oh yeah. I'm a big fan of looking at indie stuff these days because you can get GW is the biggest and they're the most expensive. So if many people are like, basically, the hobby is Games Workshop. And Games Workshop wants you to think that the hobby is Games Workshop, for sure. But that's not true. the hobby is all kinds of different small companies and things like that. And a lot of them are still keeping their prices as well as they can pretty reasonable. There are times when all of a sudden, you're a small company, but, your suppliers have now raised this, or shipping's more expensive and stuff like that. But so you have to raise prices, but you're starting from a spot that was lower to begin with than, say, Games Workshop. I'm just waiting to see, like, there's that kind of like thing that Games Workshop's been doing where they'll sell you like a single figure, and they're generally at around $35, sometimes cheaper, but sometimes $35 for like a regular, just like Primaris Lieutenant. And I'm waiting until those hit 40, because it's going to happen soon. Pretty soon, your next Primaris Lieutenant is going to be a $40 figure. And is that going to be necessary? I don't think so. I don't know that they need to charge as much as they do, but you also, as a consumer, don't need to buy their stuff. There's lots of other companies out there that make a lot of great games and a lot of great models and a lot of great paints and a lot of great brushes. And so GW stuff is certainly getting even more expensive than it already was, at an interesting, surprisingly fast rate. But the other companies out there, I would tell you, can do some pretty good work and will definitely save you money. And just like also the way you play, I don't like to play big army games, because then I don't have to buy so many models. I mean, I still buy a decent amount of models, but I'm also being able to play multiple games with them, because they're all more aiming towards skirmish and stuff like that. So yeah, it's a whole thing. My artificer brush is still in its tube as well. Yeah. Sam needs to make an exorcist game. Ooh, there you go. That's a good idea. Learn to maintain the tools, then the fancy will last long enough to justify the expense. Yeah, no, definitely. Like I said, cleaning the brush is very important. Black edges on square bases, perfect. Not square bases. I'm not a fan of square bases, but that's me. Haley, how you doing? I found that some brush soaps condition the brush too much and it becomes oleophobic. Huh, that I've not seen. Well, the stuff that the only brush soap that I've ever used much is the stuff from Monument, the Gen stuff. I like that a lot. Let's see here. For the purpose of Blood Bowl, I'm a believer in color-coded base rims to mark the positions apart. I can see that for those types of games, sure. I mean, I have generally, like, for my Star Wars Legion army that I did, which was a Empire army, my stormtroopers are all white because they're stormtroopers, but they do have, like, each squad's got its like own stripe going down like one arm or whatever, just like on that shoulder pad part. There's just like one stripe going down there. So there's like the blue stripe guys and the red stripe guys and the yellow or whatever, so that I can tell who's in what squad. But otherwise, that's about as far as I go. It is inevitable when using contrast and washes that the thin paint will always find its way into the ferrules. Mine just keeps in the brushes and spreads all the way. Yeah, I sometimes I can see that for sure. I mean, it kind of depends on how you clean them. Also, it depends on how you store them. I've found that storing brushes in, like, let's say a mug or a jar or whatever, where the bristles are pointing up, is maybe not the pro strat, because I've heard from a lot of people what happens is then you clean your brush and all that stuff, and maybe it's still a little bit wet, and then that water sort of seeps down into the ferrule, and then that brings a little bit of paint stuff with it. And over time, as you keep doing that, you're just impacting more and more stuff, which is why I see a lot of people who store their brushes flat instead of pointing up. You certainly don't want to point down into the jar. That is madness. Don't do that. Fungazi, how you doing? Happy New Year. I picked up an artificial brush before Christmas. It was 17 pounds. I wonder if they've come down in price. Well, maybe. I don't know. Like I said, I swear that the one I bought was like $26, but I don't know. Is 17 pounds roughly equal to $26? This, again, was some time ago. I know right now the pound and the dollar are a lot closer to each other. So, yeah. But I don't know that I've seen an artificer brush in a store. Well, I haven't been looking either. Not that I can think of it. But, yeah, I did, like I said, bought one a long time ago, but it's been some time. Oh, dear. Everything moved. There we go. I was taught to clean brushes with bar soap, and then I took oil painting class when I took an oil painting class in the college. Big oil painting brushes are a very different thing than the type of brushes that we use for painting our miniatures. Definitely, like much thicker bristles and all that kind of stuff. Yeah, then bar soap was always kind of the way. I've just completely assembled my first cyberhound. I shall call him Rags. He is a good cyber doggy. Nice. I've started using coconut fiber for basing. Don't soak it to break it up. Huh. Not come across that stuff. I'm not a miniature or wargaming painter / player, just a scale modeler, but I really do enjoy your content, especially these live streams. They are very nice to have in the background while hobbying. Well, it's good to hear there, Toro. I appreciate that. I've been living and working out of my semi-truck for 6 months, trying to figure out a good truck painting station since I'm home maybe 3 days a month. Yeah, I would think that would be difficult. You're not the first person who's mentioned being like long haul, like kind of trucking and being in their truck a lot and like hobbying and stuff like that. It's the one thing I would try to maybe do is they make these like laptop desks, I think is what they call them. And it's like a big giant bean bag sort of that is then sewed or glued or something like that to the bottom of like a piece of some sort of tabletop-y stuff, wood or whatever. And then you can kind of put it on your lap and adjust it to however you want, whatever, because it's like a big bean bag. And then that might not be a bad way. Like if you have to like sit specifically like when you or keep stuff like on your lap like that, it might not be a bad idea. The book of the Peripheral was great. Yeah, I listened to it 3-4 years ago, I think. And I enjoyed it. And so far, like they've had to make some changes and stuff like that, obviously, with the show, but the show's been quite good too. I liked it. I was going to back Necromolds, but it's pretty expensive. I didn't see the Kickstarter. I talked to the guy who designed it at Gen Con, not this year, but last year. But I've never messed with it. But I mean, it looks specifically kind of cool for kids. I think that's neat. Happy New Year. All my resolutions include to play more and finish that terrain. Oh, and those trees. Basically a long list of hobby projects. Yep. Maybe costs are going up in the hobby, but some of it comes down to what you want to do. 3D printed stuff can be obtained more affordably, and you can build a lot of terrain out of free to cheap stuff. Yeah. I mean, building terrain, I think, is still... I think it's a fun hobby, and I enjoy watching like YouTubers that do that stuff a lot because I think they can sometimes do some really neat stuff. It was an easy decision for me last night at the FLGS, a Corvus Belly single metal figure for $22 or a GW single plastic for $45. Ugh, yeah. Lots of stuff is very affordable. Indie games or Osprey or Snarling Badger or 3D prints or a combination thereof. Yeah, no, that's true. I mean, we have definitely tried to keep our games as reasonable as possible price-wise. Like Rain and Hell, like the printed version is like $15 plus shipping, and you get the PDF for free. And Space Station Zero, which is nearly twice the amount of pages, is only $18 instead of $15. 18 plus shipping, and also comes with the PDF. We've had people be like, you could charge more for that. And we're like, well, we could, I guess. But, we're also trying to make the stuff pretty accessible and everything. So, that's kind of what we've done there. But we don't have a bunch of shareholders we have to make happy. We just have to make ourselves happy. I mostly stick with Kill Team. I wouldn't say it's overly expensive. You can get a squad for around 35 pounds and the rules PDF for free. I guess I haven't looked at the rules PDF for Kill Team. Like a lot of people, when I was talking about something about Warcry recently, they were all like, the rules are for free online, right? You can get the rules for the new Warcry for free online. And I'm like, you can get the 26 pages out of a 160 page book for free. Yes. I mean, and they've been doing that with all their games. Like, you can get the rules for 40K free, kind of, the core rules. Those documents, those PDFs are generally a little bit more for you to look at and go, oh, that's how it works. I get it. Okay, cool. But it's not necessarily, because there's a lot of things that are not in that 26 page document that are in the, like, in the 160 page core book for the current version of Warcry. But it's like campaign play, it's like all this extra stuff, but the base, like how do you play, sure, that stuff's on there and you could do that. Now the compendium for Warcry, that is, from what I understand, the entire compendium. Like they didn't, because they thought the compendium was going to be super late, like maybe end of the year late, and they were trying to release this game and show it off to people and be like, hey, you should buy, here's the new game, it's like whatever, September. But they were like, but we're not going to have the compendium for a long time. So they put out the entire compendium in its entirety as PDFs. And then the book showed up a lot faster than they thought or something. I don't know what exactly happened, but it was a lot of things. I think if that book hadn't have been like in limbo there for a bit, I'm pretty sure they would have not released the compendium for free at all. I do not believe. Now, the thing is now the question becomes, did this have a positive effect on them? Did it get more people to get into Warcry? I don't know. I mean, I wish, but I don't know a lot. I know a lot of people who play stuff, but other GW games, I don't know that Warcry is pulling down the numbers that I wish it would, because I think it's their best game personally, but that's my personal opinion. I have been becoming a fan of clear acrylic bases. I don't hate the concept, but I do like doing the basing a little bit. Like, I don't want to go crazy, and make all kinds of stuff going on, but I do like basing a bit. So but I can see the benefit of the acrylics, because then you just don't have to mess with it. And then also it shows you like what you're on. So it's not like you you bring your models in and they all have cool desert bases, but you're playing like in a spaceship, halls or whatever, and go, why is it so sandy in here? That kind of thing. I get that. Not a fan of the Nottingham company. Well, there's a lot of companies in Nottingham, but I think I know what you're talking about. Get off that train sooner than later and start having more fun with better rule sets, cheaper, etc. Sure, I understand that. Along the lines of prices, I think it to be funny that I would not have given GW as much money in the last couple of years on books and minis if it hadn't started 3D printing. Yeah, a lot of people think that the 3D printing thing is going to be detrimental to wargaming, and I really don't think so. I really don't. Because it's interesting to see the things that you could do that impact sales that you wouldn't expect. Like when GW originally first launched the Age of Sigmar app, which was free and had all this information in there free and all the war scrolls for free. That app made me buy more models than I had bought previously, because I could be literally sitting on the toilet and looking at the stats for some army and be like, oh, that's what those guys do. Well, that would work really well with these guys, and there would be some synergy there. And then there was a button right there in the app where you could just go and order it, from their website, or you would go to your local shop or whatever. But when it's a situation of those models are neat, but I don't know what their stats are like, and I'm not going to go buy the codex for $50 just to find out what their stats are like, then I'm not going to buy those models. That just is that the extra purchase on top of the extra purchase on top of the extra purchase makes you not buy any of them. Whereas if we give you some of these things for free, specifically, like the compendium for Warcry, or just, the Age of Sigmar app, where you're like, oh, that's what they do, then you're a little bit more likely to buy them in some situations because you got to learn what they do for free. So, started hobbying in 2020. It's crazy to think that I've been in it for now 3 years. I can't wait to say I've been hobbying for 10 years. Nice. Let's see here. Recently heard that Murphy's oil soap is good for cleaning brushes. Haven't tried it yet. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what's in that stuff, so I guess I don't know. I honestly don't think I've ever spent more than $15 on any individual brush. I never saw the need to spend any more than that. Yeah, I don't think I paint well enough to get me to usually do that. I think that Artificer brush I bought was probably one of those situations where I was at the shop, I was there playing all day, and then when I was leaving, I'm like, I feel like I should buy something because I've been here taking up space, breathing their air, and all that kind of stuff. And so which is one of the reasons why I own so many of those painting handles, because those were basically like, oh, okay, cool, $8 or whatever. But I think I bought that brush because I was like, well, I should try this out, and definitely, you know, whatever, and all that kind of stuff. And also, I, you know, want to support the store. And then I've just never, I've just been afraid to use it, basically. Gentastic is what I use, and it strikes me as basically homemade soap. It's definitely got like it's got a bread smell to it. It's definitely must have some sort of maybe yeast or something. I don't know, but it's got a bread, but I think it's great stuff. I mean, I think it works great. So that's what I've been using for a couple of years now. Have you bought any more Joy Toy stuff? Also, my Shadow Sun would be here any day. I pre-ordered the Necron Lord also. I did pick up, there were like 3 Chaos guys that were in a set. I haven't had the time, honestly, to even take them out of the box, but they're here. That may be it. I don't know. For a hot second, I considered, I'm like, would it be something cool on the channel to try to do some sort of battle report just using Joy Toy models? There are problems with that concept. Number one, it would probably end up being like Kill Team, and I'm not super enamored with Kill Team. I could do Space Weirdos, one-page rules, all that kind of stuff. There's all kinds of different options I could use instead, but I'm like, why would I use giant GW, you know, models but then use some other game system? That'd be a little weird. I don't know, maybe not, whatever. The more difficult issue is that those models are great, but they don't stand... They stand just fine, but then picking them up and moving them and then getting them to stand again takes a bit more work. And the fact that they don't have bases also makes it difficult measuring-wise. I'd have to house rule a bunch of stuff there for that type of thing. And then the biggest issue, both in, you know, severity and also in literal size, is terrain. I would need to come up with terrain for a big table like that would be some sort, and it would be terrain that I could only use for those models when I want to play this thing for the Kill Team and the blah, or for the, you know, battle report. And I just, the more I thought about it, I'm like, somebody else should do it. Somebody else should, you know, I don't know, some other big YouTuber out there should buy a bunch of those models and then make a giant, you know, because I mean, think about like the thumbnail, think about like the titles, like, you know, world's biggest bat wrap or whatever, even though it wouldn't necessarily be that many models, it would just be physically large and all that. But I thought about it and I'm like, I don't like bat wraps nearly enough to want to go through all that stuff and build giant terrain so that it would be scaled properly and all that stuff and blah. So, yeah, probably not going to do that. But, those models are cool though. I dig them. They're just I don't see them being very playable. You know what I mean? I have cat hair in my varnish layer. Advice. I've never had that problem before. I don't know what to tell you. I mean, if you can peel it out and then maybe put another layer over the top of it. I mean, it depends on how you varnish. Did you varnish with a brush or with an airbrush? Because that would be also a question. For the Kill Team books, you can get the army points costs for free. Can you get the army points cost for free? No. Well, I mean, not legally. Like, there, I'm sure, are probably places you can download things and stuff like that, but I'm not a fan of that kind of stuff. But they don't give that stuff out for free. No. They produced a compendium that was kind of garbage, and that was like $50. And then since then, they've been coming out with extra, like, you know, oh, well, you know, we made the, you know, Tau in the compendium, but if you want the good Tau stats, well, then you got to buy this issue of White Dwarf, or you got to buy this box set, or you got to buy, and so that's for me a big deal. Also with Kill Team is I do not like the kind of DLC type thing that they're doing with it as far as that's concerned. I'm not a fan. Because that's a separate book. It's $105 total for 2 paperback books that I just can't bring myself to shell out. Yep, same. Yeah, same. Absolutely. Happy New Year, Adam. I have a physical copy of Space Station Zero, and you and Vince did a great job on it. Well, thank you. I appreciate that. I am wondering if you're going to support it with further scenarios down the line. So, well, that book's got 24 scenarios in it that you play in a branching narrative. So you should hopefully be able to get a bunch of different types of games through there because of the way that it goes. Like you're not going like number 1 to number 2 to number 3 to number 4. It's a more of a branching thing. That being said, we are kicking around the idea for this fall. So our next game is coming out in June. And then we are considering, which is technically late-ish spring, and then sometime in fall, maybe winter, we're not sure yet, but later part of the year, we are considering starting a periodical, which would be an annual periodical. And it would be kind of a zine. It would be a 5.5 by 8.5 little kind of digest size PDF. It would not be printed. You could print it yourself. It would be set up so that you could print it yourself if you wanted to, and then you fold it and the whole thing, put a staple in or a couple staples in it, kind of like like with like Space Weirdos is that particular size and shape, and it's got the right number of pages so that you can print it and fold it up, and boom, you got yourself a cool little zine. But we're considering doing that, and when we do that, we will probably start. The plan is, and we haven't worked on it real hard yet, but the plan is to maybe have like a very simple kind of mini game in there that's like a standalone, thing, and then also have some sort of add-on for games we've already done. So Space Station Zero, Rain and Hell, whatnot. Now, Rain and Hell's already had one expansion that we did so that we could add solo and co-op play, but we technically haven't planned to do anything for Space Station Zero. These games are generally all designed to be like self-contained. Like that's our hope, is that we just make this thing that's self-contained that you can play and you can get fun out of it. You don't pay too much for it. But we've had, immediately upon release of our first game on Rain and Hell, people were like, okay, cool, when's the next expansion? And we're like, that's GW's fault, making people think, well, it's got to be constantly more expansions. We're just like, here's a game, here's another game, here's another game, and we're going to kind of keep doing it that way. But like I said, we may have a little bit of we may have some sort of add-on or alternate rules or some sort of thing that we'll put in that periodical, if we do it, which is the plan. But that's what we're thinking about right now. So anyway, that's the not particularly great answer, but it's the answer. Well, folks, it's a little bit after 11. I got to get going. I have to clean off this table. There's still snack shrapnel on the table here. So I'm going to do that and then go have some lunch. Probably going to take a nap later because I'm kind of tired. But thanks, everybody, for coming by and hanging out. I appreciate it. And I hope you have a happy New Year's Day. And maybe get some hobby time in there or some time to just hang out and relax. That's fun too. And then, I will be streaming tomorrow. Wait, today's Sunday. Yes, I'll be streaming tomorrow on Twitch. Twitch.tv/Tabletop Minions, 7 p.m. Central Time. So come on by and watch that. We'll be starting a new project and going from there. So we'll see you folks back here in 2 weeks, but otherwise we'll hopefully see you on Twitch on Monday night, Friday morning as well, and all that kind of stuff. And I want to say thanks again for the support in 2022, and I'm looking forward to new and cool things for 2023. That's pretty much it. Have yourselves a good day, and thanks for watching.